Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? $1 or something. $1 or something.
Recording live in the Conscious Creative Media Studios from somewhere in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, you are listening to the world's greatest photography podcast with your host, Bill Howard.
Thank you once again, Scott, and you are listening to the world's greatest photography podcast, and we can be found on basically all the podcasting sites, as well as on YouTube at Conscious Creative Media. That's CRE8IVE. We're here today with former real estate agent and current real estate photographer and videographer, Brian Kurtz of MichiganVideoTours.com, and you can also find him on Instagram at It's Brian Kurtz. And
you learn those things as you're in the field doing the things. And so not only do you lose on the $300 or the $500 that Saturday that you could have had because you're like, oh, I'm not bringing the industry down. I am not working for those rates. You lose. You weren't going to get anything anyway. You didn't have a $3,000 wedding scheduled. So you lost the $300 or $500 or whatever it was. You lost the experience that you would have gotten in your niche, doing the work in that field, and you would have needed, experience is that you could build into your mind for the next one when you do have the $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $30,000 destination wedding. You lost all of that. It was literally a zero. You know what you did? You sat at home and you played Fortnite, or you played Splatoon, or you went on Netflix, or whatever. You had a 0 day. You didn't move the ball forward even 1 yard. And this business, photography business, if you ever want to be great, you got to make sure you're moving every single day that you possibly can, unless you're sick or you're taking vacation day or date day with the wife or something like that, in which case you're moving the ball forward in a different area of your life. Every day that you're working or should be working, you need to move it at least forward 1 yard. Every day isn't going to be a big touchdown pass, but every day needs to be you knowing you did something to move the ball forward 1 yard. And if you're not doing that, you need to be shaming yourself inside and saying, I didn't do what I needed to do to move the ball forward at least a bit today. I'm ashamed of that. I'm going to correct that behavior tomorrow and make sure I do move the ball forward one day. Even if it's next week, it's just, I am going to take that 300 wedding. I'm going to take that 500 wedding. And so, those kind of principles, I think, are all about right thinking about business. But do you want to swing back to this, the pitch on getting?
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
All
Well,
right.
I tell you what, real quick before you go there, I'm going to play devil's advocate for one question on
Okay,
this.
go ahead.
Because I've said the same thing, and I've got a national client that pays very little per commercial apartment complex.
Okay.
But I'll get 300 of them, and I can shoot all 300 of them in a 4-day stretch.
Oh.
So I make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well,
Bank it.
The thing that comes back
Take
says,
it.
well, you're wasting your money or you're wasting your time, you're wasting your ability because you're shooting that low stuff when you could be marketing for the high stuff. What's your answer to that? That's the devil's advocate question. Okay, you take a house that you shoot for $50 or you shoot for free when you could have marketed to get a $500 house.
Okay.
And I know the answer, and I think I know what you're about to say.
Well, that is actually, unfortunately, there's no short answer to that. That is a very complex issue. And what I call that, and I'll just kind of summarize it, and then we'll have to pivot away from it because it would be a whole show. There's this idea that I have in that every time you want to take a step to the next level, you're here and you want to take a step here. There's going to be this gray area in between. I actually call it the Twilight Zone. right? The Twilight Zone is the area of friction. It's the most difficult place to be. It's the place where you do have to make all those decisions. I got to pay the now bills. I got to keep the now customers happy. I built this thing here, this part of my business, this niche of my business, and it's going well. If I screw that up, the customers will abandon me. They will leave me. I won't be able to pay the current bills while I'm trying to pursue getting to the next thing. But I do want to get to the next thing, so I do have to do the things to get me to the next level. And so when you're in the Twilight Zone, I think you just kind of got to feel it out. You got to feel it out. You have to look at your calendar. It's all about time management. You got to book things in there for outreach to the next level customer, right? And just do those things. But you do have to make sure that you keep the bills paid. In your case, where you have a customer, high volume customer that, I don't know if it's once or twice a year, represents a big check that shows up, kind of like a windfall. I would keep that customer until I'm making so much money from my next level thing, whatever your next move is, right? High-end architecture clients or whatever. Once you're making so much money doing the next thing that it costs you money to do the old thing, at that point in time, you kill the old thing. You tell them, look, you got to make that hard phone call and say, look, I've been doing this other thing and it's taking up all my time. I really appreciate your business all the time, but we're going to have to go separate ways. I've got this guy over here who's doing a really great job. I think that you should probably use him. He'll be able to continue the same quality, the same level. If they've been taking care of you, you should at least take care of them on the exit. And that's my theory on that. When you're in the Twilight Zone, that's what you need to do. You need to just kind of play it by ear and fill it out until you got enough money to close the other thing down.
Well, I'll give you a little history on this one company. That the first time I shot for them, it was actually one of my first paid gigs.
Okay.
And it was 25 apartments I had to shoot. Again, it was a low amount of money per apartment, but it was 25 apartments.
Right.
And it took me an entire weekend to shoot all 25.
Okay.
I went full time on the promise that they had 360 for me, about 5-hour drive from here.
Okay.
But I could shoot all of them on one shot, and it worked. They actually supply half of my income every year. And the best thing about them is, if I've got work that's going on here that I need to do, I do the work, and I can call them. I can send them an email and say, hey, I've got another commercial client in St. Louis. Have you got anything between Eastern North Carolina and St. Louis that you just need some cleanup shots for? And just about every time I'll get 50 or 100 or 150 that they'll add on to it.
There you go.
And then that makes the trip even more worthwhile and allows me to get other clients that I normally wouldn't do because the cost of travel would be too much.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got to get to the point where we're not shutting doors simply because we see X per Y.
Right.
We got to realize that Y can be multiplied many, 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 many times.
Right. And why would we be too much? Why would you ever be too proud to take the money that somebody's throwing at you? I don't get that.
But let's put it in a football analogy.
Yeah.
If the average running back in the NFL is 3.7, 3.8 yards minimum, I would guess.
Okay.
So when it's 4th and 1 and they're on their own 20,
how
many times do you see them go for it? They punt the ball.
Right.
If they're inside the other team's 30, what do? They don't go for it. They kick the field goal.
Right.
They take what they know they can get.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's strategy, and it's like I know that's a very well-known axiom at the Army War College, right? It says that amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk strategy, and if you think about that, just think about it that way. When you go into a Facebook group, a forum, anything like that, what are people talking about primarily? They're talking tactics. They're talking gear. They're talking workflow. They're talking this, that, or the other thing. How many discussions are being talked about at the strategic level, the business level, the what makes sense, what doesn't make sense? How can I get from here to there?
You are listening to the world's greatest photography podcast with your host, Bill Howard.
So real quick, let's talk about the discussion that you have with the agent when you have them online. The pitch is going to be this. Here's my theory. If you're willing to work for free, and I do suggest you be willing to work for free, and the reason being is when an agent sees your work on their listing, the impact is 100 times more powerful than them showing up and looking at your portfolio. Let me say it again. When they see your work on their listing, it's 100 times more powerful than if they see your portfolio. They know if you send them to your website that you put your prettiest images on there, your most fancy houses. Very often the houses they list are not fancy houses like the ones you put on your website. And so they don't have any clue or perspective on how your photos are going to look on a house like theirs. And so being willing to do what it takes to put your work on the listing of one of these target agents. We talked about these target agents. They represent a lot of money and value, and they're at that phase, right? They're at that phase where they can make the decision. They have the money to pull the trigger. They're not glued to another photographer, and they need photos because they're not using a professional photographer right now. Do what you need to do to stack the deck in your favor that you're going to get that business. That's my theory on that. And that means being willing to work for free. Here's the good news for all the anti-work for free people. I had another epiphany, and I was like, wait a minute. If I was willing to work for free, then any money I get over that is gravy money, right? I was going to get zero, but now I'm going to get more. How? Okay, so my pitch is this. The pitch that you're going to give to the agent is, hey, you pick the price. Here's my normal price. You tell them the normal price so that it puts it in perspective. Here's my normal price, but we're going to let you pick the price. Anything more than $1. So basically, if you work for $1, it's free, right? It's the same as a free shoot for the most part, but they are paying something. And it means that you're going to send them an invoice, so at least they'll get used to the invoicing process. But that's the pitch. You pick the price. And so here's what you do. When you call through the list, right, you've got your spreadsheet, you click on the little links, it pops up their profile in Zillow, you look at their phone number, you call. When they answer, here's the key too. You are looking to divide them into one of two groups. Group A is interested. There's not very many of these people. Group B are the uninterested people. The uninterested people, you are not going to try to turn them into interested people. You are not going to try to sell them. You're not going to try to talk to them over the phone about all the value that you can bring them. That is a waste of your time. Your job is not to make mean people nice and crazy people sane. Your job is to find nice, sane people and work with them. That's your approach, okay? Now, here's the great thing. You call them up, ring, ring, ring. Hi, this is Alan. Hi, Alan, this is Brian with Michigan Video Tours Photography. And this is what you say. Because before you called them, you clicked on their profile and you looked at a listing they currently have without pro-grade photos, and you look at what it says on Zillow. If it says more than 30 days on Zillow, you call on that house, okay? Because they know that it's been sitting, and their seller knows, and there's an internal pressure about that, okay? You say, I'm calling about this house over here on 123 Main Street. I saw that it's been on the market for a little bit longer than most of the other houses. I was wondering if maybe, and you emphasize that maybe word, I was wondering if maybe you'd given some thought to bringing in a photographer to help, breathe some new life into that one so you can, get it over the goal line, get it sold, and get yourself a commission check. Had you given some thought to that? That's how you present it. Just one quick line like that. You're referring to one of their listings that's important to them. You're being very tactful about it. You're saying maybe, right? And they're going to give you one of two responses. And based on the response, you'll know which kind of customer they are, if they're the interested or the uninterested. The uninterested people will say no. Okay? It comes in 1,000 different flavors, right? It's like better than Baskin Robbins. They all say no in a whole bunch of different ways. Okay? And so the great thing is the interested people all say one thing. So you really only have to listen for one thing. And the one thing is this. I don't know. What's your price? That's what an interested person says. 100% of the people that are interested say, I don't know, what's your price? That's the signal that they are interested, that they are one of the interested. If they don't say that, they say all the other thousands of different things that to get you off the phone, they are an uninterested person. If it is an uninterested person, they are uninterested in working with you, you are uninterested in working with them. You're not dragging them kicking and screaming to the promised land. You only have so much emotional energy for cold calling, and it's not going to be used on trying to convince the people that don't want to do business with you to do business with you. So when they say no, you say, fair enough, have a great day, and you hang up. You highlight their name and you mark it as red in your spreadsheet and you don't call them again. Okay? Great. But what if they're the interested person? They say, maybe, what's your price? Your response is, well, you know, Adam, we haven't done business together, so my pricing really doesn't mean anything to you because you've never seen my work on any of your listings. There's no way for you really to judge that. I mean, I could tell you about my portfolio, but you're really not going to get much from that because what if my portfolio isn't like your houses, right? And they said, well, yeah, well, what is your price? Well, my typical price on a 4-bedroom house of that size is $250. But here's the good news, Adam. I don't want to let money, something as common as money, stand between you and me doing business on that particular house there. I know that, you know, my photos are going to help you. I want you to know that my photos are going to help you, but we're not going to know that if we let money stand between us. So here's what we're going to do, Adam. Today, my services are on sale. I'm going to let you pick the price. Any number, as long as it's more than $1, you pick the number. I'm going to do my best photography on that particular listing. You get the photos, use them just as normal. And from there, you'll have all the information you need going forward to determine if my work is worth what I typically charge or not. Does that sound fair, Adam? And they will say yes or no. And if they say yes, these may be one of your customers for life. And then you do exactly what you promised. You show up at the agreed upon time. You do the work. You send them the photos and you send them the invoice for whatever number they pick out and tell you. And from there, you wait usually a week, let it settle in after they've heard some feedback from the seller. So we love the new photos so much better. You know, they're getting more calls. They get feedback from their agents. Oh, we saw your house. It looks so sexy, right? All that stuff that they keep hearing, reaffirming, oh my gosh, what a great decision this was. Calling Brian, letting Brian call me. What a great decision. Deciding to let him photograph my listing. Things are moving forward. I don't even have any offers yet, but I'm feeling good about the response I'm getting from Brian's photos, right? And it's all about feelings and emotions as they, make decisions. And that is exactly how you go about getting new customers. You can repeat that process again and again and again as many times or as few times as you want. I only had to do it with 7 people before I got enough business. Remember, all of these people were doing 12 or more. So if they decided to do, one of them decided not to do business. Out of the 7 people I gave, these discounted photo shoots, they averaged between $100 and $200. That was the number they picked. Nobody, I think, picked less than, I think one person picked 85. So out of the 7 people I shot for, 1 never used me again. The other 6 all did. One of the 6 left me after a year for a different competitor. I don't know why. The photos aren't as good. They're color stained. Maybe at lower price. I don't know. But the rest of them are all still with me to this day. And the vast majority of all my customers have come from referrals from those people. And that's how you do that.
And in real estate, it's amazing how much you can get from your referrals from one agent to another.
Right. It's one of those few businesses that's still like that, where it just grows organically. Like hairstylists and salons, right? They do a good job. They just keep doing a good job. They'll build up a clientele. Architects, interior designers. There's certain, basically one person to one person kind of businesses can grow by word of mouth still. Everything else, you got to have these big funnels, right? Lead funnels. Don't you want a lead funnel? You see those ads on
Exactly.
Facebook all the time. I've got the best lead funnel for you to make you grow your business. Okay, yeah.
Well, you're listening to the world's greatest photography podcast, and we are with Brian Kurtz from MichiganVideoTours.com, and he has given us just top-of-the-line information today. Brian, I would love to have you back on for another podcast to talk more into the business, because getting started into the business and the marketing side, you have nailed it today. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And Brian actually has some work he has to go do. And this podcast is just about timed out. So, Brian, again, thank you for coming on board today. Make sure you check out Brian's site at MichiganVideoTours.com and on Instagram at It's Brian Kurtz, Kurtz. And until next week, we'll see you later.
Have a good one, Bill.
Thank you, Brian.
Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? $1 or something. Get you $1 or something. Something. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? $1 something. Get you $1 or something. Something. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something?